Hello, I'm Danny Crumno, and I want to talk to you a bit today about something that is pretty important in metal detecting, hunting, you name it. And I'm trying to give you some advice on how to get permission to metal detect these old sites and things like that. First of all, you can't find anything if nothing is there. So you need to research and look for old houses and things like that. And when you get into these old houses and things, you can't go digging up everything. You need to practice on clad field parking lots and places like that, maybe dance halls, fairgrounds, parking lots. You need to practice somewhere so you know what a coin sounds like. You can't dig everything there like some of them want you to do. It's not possible, especially at old houses or any house, that's got a good lawn out front. So before I start the legalities and all, I'm going to tell you the best method for getting permission is to stop and talk to the people. Get their phone number and send a text to prove that you were in contact with them. And saying that, a lot of times you're going to call them on the phone. The best chance of getting turned down is talking to them on the phone. So stop and talk. So let's start with the legalities. I am not a lawyer. I'm a 30-year police chief here in Texas, so I enforced a lot of laws over my years. In the city, check with City Hall. In the county, check with your county offices. A lot of times this is just as simple as talking to a policeman or somebody like that, because they're the ones that's going to arrest you or probably run you out of someplace. So talk to them and tell them what you intend to do and get their advice. So, saying that, I am not a lawyer. Most lawyers won't even tell you what to do. They will just give you their opinion, which, sometimes won't go very far. All right, let's start off with what happens if you're someplace you shouldn't be. Let's talk about trespassing laws. The first thing you need to be aware of is purple paint. If there is purple paint, now we're talking about Texas here. I know other states' laws are similar, but I do know Texas law. Purple paint means no trespassing. And it's supposed to be marked ever so many feet and all that. But be aware, if you see purple paint, that is the same as a no trespassing sign. Of course, you know what signs are. And I've got notes here that I'm reading to make sure I don't leave anything out. The other thing is a fence. If it's any kind of fence, whether it contains livestock, meant to keep burglars out, you name it. If there's a fence there, that means no trespassing, so stay out. The other thing is if there is an edible crop. In other words, there's an open field in front of you. There's no place to put purple paint or signs or whatever. If it's an edible crop, you can be charged with trespassing. Now, edible, it doesn't mean for human. It could mean cows or whatever. It could be an oats patch, whatever. But if there's an edible crop, you can be charged with trespassing. I call that the watermelon stealing law. Okay. Do not hunt cemeteries. Common sense should tell you to stay out of a cemetery. Now, saying that, I've made some really good finds in the parking lot for cemeteries. Really good finds at some churches that have cemeteries behind them. I always stay in the parking lots and all. A lot of the churches will let you hunt. It's always a good idea to get in touch with the pastor or at least a deacon and, get his opinion on whether you can metal detect there. Okay, now let's get into the nuts and bolts here. My biggest tip and the biggest weapon is right here. This is called OnX Hunt. OnX Hunt. Now this is good for hunting because it shows you how many acres you're at on. It shows you where you're at, that blue dot right there. But when you click on a place, it also shows you who owns that place. That'll show you the owner. Now, this is a little bit behind. Sometimes if you buy a place in January, it may not get put on there for a while. I don't think they update it but once a year. But it does give you the current owner. It'll also give you the current owner if you expand it. If you notice there, it's expanded. It's got Danny Crumno. That's my place there. My 2 lots. That is a weapon because you know where your boundaries are. You know who owns that place. OnX Hunt is a must-have. Now, the next recommendation is white pages. I've found that white pages is best for phone numbers. Now, OnX Hunt, it's going to cost you $30, $40 a year. White pages is going to cost you close to that too. Now, you say, well, I've got access to publicdata.com or whatever. Publicdata.com is not very good for getting phone numbers. I don't know if you can get them but one place that I know of, and those phone numbers are on the professional licensing page. So I don't recommend publicdata.com. If you can run phone license plate numbers or driver's license, as law enforcement, we got contact numbers, but I don't think you can get that off publicdata.com. It's just not available, so I do not recommend that one. Okay, so we're out, and I've already told you the best method is to stop and talk. Look for old houses, talk to the people there. Generally, if you have an old house and there's a neighbor, you can stop in, ask them for the phone number of the owner. You can verify it with OnX Hunt. That is your best practice. And stop and talk to people. They'll definitely like to talk to you. I mean, sometimes I'll spend 30 minutes, an hour talking before I get any information. But you know how old the houses are by looking at them. Those are good places. Now let's talk about another place, like, let's say Corps of Engineers. They build a lot of the lakes. You can hunt Corps of Engineers property, but you must get a permit. Lake Waco, right there. Go in, the permit's free. Get you a metal detecting permit. They'll tell you where you can hunt, where you can't hunt. But they'll also tell you what you're supposed to do with your fines. So it's free. Can't gripe about that. I don't know about state parks. Each one could have different rules and regulations. I don't deal with beaches down on the coast. I understand that you can hunt most of them. It's just fine, so some of you beach hunters may chime in here and give us your experience. But another thing is large cities and some counties. Now, sometimes these large cities, like Waco, I call that a large city, they'll come in and condemn these houses. I know Marlin has done a few of them. And they will tear the houses down, and the city becomes the owner of that house. Now, it will go into Onyx Hunt, and I wish I'd pulled up some to give you some examples, but it will tell you City of Waco, City of Marlin, you name it, and that is where they have condemned a house and torn it down. The good thing is usually they keep these sites mowed, and they're nice for metal detecting. So, you might check with the city, or I would suggest a policeman, because that's who's going to come after you. If you check with him and he says go ahead and hunt, there ain't a problem with it, I'd be in there hunting. Then if they call him in later and say, hey, you got to do something with these people, he'll more than likely just drive up to you and say, hey, I'm sorry, I told you wrong, you got to leave. So anyhow, I have found a lot on City of Waco lots and, old condemned houses that are good places to metal detect. The other thing is that they keep the grass mowed, and you definitely want to have mowed grass. If you're hunting in grass that's chest high, that isn't any good. Most of the schools will allow you to hunt in the parking lots or areas where they don't have buildings and things like that. They do keep the grass mowed, and schools are pretty good, especially if they're real old schools. There hadn't been nobody there for a while. I know most in my area allow me to hunt. Now, I don't know. I do call the superintendent, and I do get permission for going in there. So anyhow, other thing is fairgrounds. Parking lots for fairgrounds at other places, generally they're county owned. Generally they will allow you to hunt. Now, you've got to fill up your holes and things like that. A big tip is always take a 5-gallon bucket. You take a 5-gallon bucket, a white one that stands out real good, and you set it down out there, and every time you come across a piece of trash or you dig up some junk, throw it in that 5-gallon bucket. Somebody comes up there, going to give you some grief, and they'll ask you, first thing, what's that bucket for? Well, sir, that is for all my trash, as I always try to leave something better than what I found it. And a lot of times that will change their mind, and they're going to look around and see if you've been filling in holes and things like that. That bucket makes a big difference. So, saying that, I'm going to tell you to beware of historical sites. There are people that says there's laws that say that you have to avoid historical sites and you can't dig stuff up, whatever. I've never seen that. I've never heard of a policeman arresting that, and I just can't see, barring a no trespassing sign or something like that, any prosecutor prosecuting somebody for that. But know that I've been told that's out there. I just haven't seen it. So, in summary here, Onyx Hunt is going to tell you the owner of just about any property anywhere you're at. It's going to tell you how many acres and tell you the boundaries. The best places that I've found is white pages for getting the phone numbers of these people. Now, you're going to have to spend a little time. You're going to have to do a little research to get their phone numbers. It may be multi-ones listed, but eventually you're going to find their phone numbers. So that is a big weapon right there, is knowing who owns that house. So I'm going to end that with a story. A few years ago, I talked to a lady. She's in the upper 80s, and I got permission to hunt her place. Well, I was hunting her place, and she said, my only reservation is I want to know everything you found. No problem. So I found a lot of quiet coins. I found a couple good silver coins and things like that. And I called her on the phone. And that's another tip right there, is that you generally always should send a text to prove that you've been in contact with the owner. Prove that you got permission. So anyhow, I'm talking to this lady on the phone, and I'm telling her all that I found, and I'm about to hang up when I said, oh yeah, I did find a little pendant off a necklace. And she said, oh really, what was it? And I said, oh, it was just an old antique race car. I said, it's not silver or anything. And she got real quiet on me, and that bothered me. And I said, ma'am, what's wrong? And she said, oh, you don't know the story. And I said, no, ma'am, I don't. Tell me about it. She said, when I was 12 years old, my mother was killed in a race car. And she said, if you don't mind, could I have that? Well, I was going to throw the thing away, so of course she could have it. So I drive over to her house, and I hand her that, and she starts looking at it, and she starts crying. And she said, my mother was the first one anywhere around that I know of to start racing cars. And at 12 years old, she was killed. And this is an exact replica of the race car that she was killed in. And I've already called all of my relatives and found out none of them had a necklace with this pendant on it. So it had to come from my mother. And that struck me. That really struck me. Something I was fixing to throw away meant the world to this lady. So don't discount something that may be junk to you. It may mean something to the owner. And this was her home place that I was metal detecting. So, I'm so glad that I told her about that. Saying all that, I thank you for watching. I hope some of these tips helped you. I hope your metal detecting endeavors go as good as mine. I've found a lot of stuff over the years, and I just enjoy it mainly for the exercise. So thank you for watching this video. Hope this helps.